I've always found the Monstera Adansonii to be one of the trickiest plants to keep happy. For reasons not known to me, the leaves just kept going yellow and dying off. I tried countless times to tame the beast, but the beast always got the better of me.
That was until today, because I think I've discovered the secret to success. I've made one change, I've tried something new, and I've finally got one that looks like he's thriving.
And this video is sponsored by Squarespace. Leaf problems like yellowing or brown crispy edges are universal. I think everyone suffers with this at some point of owning this fussy plant. But why does it happen?
Well, it's all to do with the roots and how skilled we are at keeping them happy. If the roots are unhappy, then it tends to show through the leaves. And I think this is a particular problem for this plant, more so than his big brother Monstera deliciosa.
They're thin and delicate, and the slightest mistake we make with the plant's private parts mean they spiral into a cycle of crispy doom. The main culprit is watering. The Adansonii hates nothing more than for the soil to dry out and then get soaked and then dry out again and then get soaked again, and for this cycle to rinse and repeat forever. They're much more sensitive than a deliciosa, who wouldn't bat an eyelid at this.
This is particularly a problem if we veer too far into forgetting to water our plant and letting the soil go bone dry. It's actually a little known fact that underwatering can cause root rot just as much as overwatering. This happens when the roots go so dry that they become brittle, and then when we remember to water them, they turn to mush.
But problems happen before we even get to that stage. Roots get starved of water, they can't funnel any to the leaves, and the tiny leaf cells burst, and we are left with that ugly scarring in the form of brown crispy edges, and our reputation as competent plant parents is in serious jeopardy.
So armed with this knowledge, it seems like the answer is obvious, right? Never let the soil dry out. And this should work in theory, but the problem we have is the risk of overwatering and all the carnage that brings.
Getting the balance right between keeping the soil constantly moist and not waterlogged is a challenge even the most experienced gardeners struggle with. The thing we have to balance is not the water necessarily, but instead the oxygen. Starve the root ball of oxygen and root rot misery will be upon us in a flash.
It's easy to suck out all the air from the soil by keeping it wet. And this is why plant pros always bang on about checking the soil first before watering. It's something I've long struggled with myself. It's a very fine balancing act between a healthy root system and one that's at death's door. But recently, I've changed something.
Something that takes this balancing act completely away, and the result has been this beautiful plant. This is actually the offspring of a plant that has since departed us, and the secret is that I popped him into a pot of stones instead of soil. And by stones I mean pond, which is just a fancy name for a collection of stones. Anyway, this pot then spends his days sat in a pool of water in a ceramic pot.
This is a semi-hydro setup, and it's been a game changer for said Adansonii.
First, if you've been thinking about building a website, whether that's to showcase your work, sell products, or finally get that side project off the ground, then today's video sponsor Squarespace is honestly the best place to start. I've been using Squarespace for a couple of years now to run my own website, and it has been effortless from day one. You simply pick a beautiful template, then you drop in your photos and text, and within minutes it actually looks like you hired a designer. You also get built-in analytics, email tools, and AI now to help you write and design even faster, so everything you need to grow online is right there in one place.
Head to squarespace.com to start your free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use code Sheffield for 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. So why does this work so well? Well, there are a few things we need to get right for this to work properly, but the nitty-gritty of it is that there is always water available for the roots.
The idea is that you never let the pool of water run dry. As soon as it looks like it's running low, you top it up about a third of the way up the pot. This constant access to water means the roots and leaves aren't on a roller coaster ride of getting drenched, drying out, and the cycle repeating. Everything stays nice and constant. Just look how perky this fella is. He's got a youthful exuberance, doesn't he? He just can't wait to start climbing this wall. This is all because he's got a main line of water fed directly to his roots and leaves all the time.
Now I know what you're thinking. Won't the fact that he's sat in water all day and night lead to root rot? It goes against every plant care principle, surely. But this all goes back to oxygen. Roots die from a lack of it. It's not necessarily just the water. Water has plenty of oxygen available, and so the roots won't just suffocate. It's when the soil gets saturated that we're in trouble. Oxygen gets pushed out and the whole thing becomes a bloody mess.
Semi-hydro is the perfect antidote. I mean, just look at all these healthy roots filling out the pot. There's not a black root to be seen, it's glorious. Plants can and will live in water. The stones in the pot are only really there to keep the plant suspended in the pot and help bridge the gap between the dry roots and water. But I wouldn't buy into the plants growing only in water trend doing the rounds. That's an algae fest in the making. Get yourself some stones. I'll link to a video all about this at the end, so stay tuned.
Now, there are a few things we need to get right for all of this to work. It's not just a simple case of filling a pot with stones and water and being done with it.
Now I bet you're the doting plant parent, aren't you? You give your dear darlings 3 meals a day in the form of fertiliser so that they're ready to face the day head on.
And now that I've shown you the wonders of semi-hydro for Monstera Adansonii, you're probably thinking that you'll carry on fertilising them in the same way. But sadly, this would be a mistake that will leave your little guy malnourished and not able to grow and look spectacular like he's destined to.
Before we get to the nuts and bolts of it, let me encourage you to download my Plant Problems Troubleshooting Handbook that is linked in the description. It will help a ton when something untoward happens with your plants, and it's completely free. Check it out. Regular houseplant fertiliser doesn't contain the full range of nutrients. You're not being shortchanged or anything, but some are missing by design because it is assumed that the natural processes in the soil, like the microbes going about their business, will supply them for free. The stumbling block here, of course, is that semi-hydro is soilless, so there aren't the microbes available to supply those missing nutrients.
So if we add regular fertiliser to the pool of water in the pot, the plant won't be getting his 5 a day, and this could lead to stunted growth and less oomph in the leaves. Now luckily for us, there are fertilisers out there that will provide everything the plant needs, hydroponic fertilisers.
I know it sounds like a pain to get a dedicated fertiliser just for one plant, but trust me, it makes a big difference. Plus, once you start to see the benefits on plants like this, you'll be making the switch with more plants in no time. So, look out for a hydroponic fertiliser like this. It should say full spectrum on the bottle. Now, there is something else you need to be aware of before you go gung-ho with semi-hydro.
There is a world in which no matter how much fertiliser you give, the plant just will not be able to lap it up. And it's all to do with pH. Yep, back to school we go.
Think of pH as a world-renowned shipping lane, and nutrients as cargo ships carrying everything your plant needs to survive. When everything is running smoothly, those ships can sail straight into port. But when the chemistry is off, the shipping lane gets blocked. The ships are still out there loaded with nutrients, but they're stranded because the water has become too acidic or too alkaline. So even if you're giving your plant the perfect fertiliser, it won't matter if the pH is wrong. The nutrients are there, but the plant can't get hold of them, and the world is left to suffer. That's why this sneaky little number is so important.
I worked on that analogy for all of 5 minutes. I hope you liked it.
Now, I realise it's yet another thing to check, but it's worth putting your mind at rest and getting a little bottle of test strips to see how your water is coming out. Once you know where you stand, you'll either need to adjust it up or down so that it's in the neutral range.
So popping this guide to semi-hydro isn't the only thing I put this improved look down to. There is something else I'm adding to the water along with the fertiliser that I'm sure you're familiar with if you're a long-time subscriber to the channel.
Water conditioner. I brought this to my viewers about 3 years ago now, and it's been great to see all the comments flood in about how this stuff has transformed their plants whenever I mention it in my videos.
If you're not in the know, then water conditioner will neutralise chlorine in tap water. It's usually used in fish tanks to help keep water safe for fish, but it's just as beneficial for indoor plants.
Chlorine in tap water isn't necessarily a big deal for most of our indoor plants, but for sensitive soils with thin leaves it can be. The slow, constant build-up of chlorine in the soil, or in this case water, from when we water every week can cause problems for the roots and lead to brown edges on the leaves. When I made the change, I saw a remarkable improvement in lots of my fussy plants. So just because this guy is semi-hydro, I'm not skimping on the water conditioner. It's just a case of adding a single drop to a 1 litre watering can. Seriously, that's it, a bottle lasts forever.
So how should you go about making this switch to semi-hydro?
Well, the easiest way that involves next to no fuss is the way that I did it with this guy. And that is to simply take a cutting from the mother plant, root it in water and then pop it into a pot of pon or leca. This way there is no changeover needed and no adjustment period for the plant.
Now don't be tempted to just put your cutting into a vase of water and hoping that it will remain his home for life. I've tried it and the results were ugly to say the least. I made a whole video about why this is a bad idea that you should watch next by clicking here.